I just want to dispel some myths before we get into it. Sometimes people think about webinars and they think about either the boring sales presentations, or they think about the pushy sales presentations. So what I'm talking about is how you can build a brand and leverage webinars as an opportunity and a way to reach more people and convert them into conversations with potential customers. That's what we're looking at. So building a sales pipeline with webinars. Now, if how many of you here, oh, hi, Julia, not seen you on LinkedIn for a little while. Maybe it's just the LinkedIn algorithm missing us a little bit. How many of you work in a small business? So if you work for a small business, put that in the chat so I can see. And how many work for a large business? Just put that in the chat as well so I can understand. Hi, Christina from Thornbury in Bristol. I was in Bristol at the weekend. So let us know if you're in a small business or a large business so I can just tailor today's session based on what's the majority. So put that in the chat or the comments. Small business, large business, that will really help. Just to add some context to this, a lot of the time when we do webinars, small business, so a lot medium, small, okay. So this is where a lot of the small business people will have an advantage over and above the larger businesses. I know that sounds strange, but actually a smaller business can actually coordinate this more easily. So often what happens in a larger organization, a marketing department will create the webinar and then push the salespeople to actually drive it and promote it. And what happens is it fails because the salespeople aren't invested. The salespeople are seen as, oh, we just have to get them to this. They don't see how it joins up. So the first thing I want to do is walk you through how this joins up. So it will take a little bit of thought process, and you will need some brain power in this. So you'll need to think about this. But again, if after today's session you're struggling and you're going, I just need to run through that again, you can ask us for the replay of this session, but also the extra tutorials on how to implement this, which we'll give you for free. And just as an aside, if you get value from this training, the only thing we expect from you is those things, the follows, the likes and all that stuff. That's brilliant for us in terms of helping our brand. So I'm doing whiteboard session again, and we're going to use an example so that you can see what this pipeline looks like with a webinar. So we'll go to the whiteboard, and your webinar strategy has to line up with your sales process. So if I move over here so you can see me a little bit better, has to line up with your sales process. So hopefully you can see this on screen, but your first stage in your sales process is probably a call with that client or potential client. That's the first thing that you have to do. So what most people are doing on email outreach, on LinkedIn, on all of these different places is trying to get people onto a call. Actually, it's incredibly expensive to get people onto a call. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a webinar as a tool to help you build those conversations and calls. And so, yeah, I can see lots of people are joining here. So if there's very large, Kaya, it's not impossible. It just means you have to bring more people on board. So if you want to get a call, and believe me, we are going to talk about webinars, but if we're going to build a sales pipeline with webinars, we have to understand where we're taking people. So if this is the first call where we can establish their need and how we can help. Yeah, but we can also establish how we can propose services. Yeah, so just the standard stuff. We can't sell anything to somebody until we understand where they're coming from and whether their product or service is a fit or whether their company is a fit for us. We have to establish this stuff first. So their need, how we can help, and we have to propose a service. And usually that comes off the first call. And now down here, they don't even know we exist. So they're a cold prospect. Very little knowledge. So they might know who we are, but they don't know much more than them. Yeah, so nothing really. So that's where they are, and that's where we want them to be. So our webinar can be used as a vehicle which we insert into this process here. Yeah, so we put our webinar in. Now, what most people will try and do is use that webinar to sell people. It's a mistake. It's a real mistake. And I'll tell you why. Because people come to webinars and people show up at webinars because they want something for themselves, value. They will not appreciate your value or your product. They appreciate, how can you help me? What's in it for me in this webinar? And not many prospects will be excited about hearing about your sales pitch. They just want to know how they can resolve their own issues or how they can achieve something. So we can insert this webinar into our sales process to help us trigger that first call. Now, one of the things about cold outreach and reaching out to people in that way is often you get a lot of people coming to calls where you don't have a need or you can't see how they can help them. Welcome, Nick. Welcome, Aaron. Welcome, Imitaz, Carolina. Brilliant to have you all here. Nice to have some people joining us on YouTube too. You can, Pete, no worries. Welcome. On YouTube, on LinkedIn, wherever you're watching, you can comment in the chat and ask questions as far as we go, wherever we go. So here we go. This is the journey we're trying to take people on. I know this is a lot to go in, and we insert our webinar into the process. So what's the purpose of the webinar? Well, this is really important. The closer you put them to a cold prospect, the less you can sell. So what we're going to do is we put it in the middle of this process. So I'll walk you through the practicalities of this in a minute, but I just want to get the strategy piece nailed here. So the job of this webinar, think of it like this. If I send 1,000 emails out, cold outreach, only a percentage of these people will engage with me because it's generic. But what I could use is use this webinar as a terrible example here, by the way, as a magnet to attract the people with the need. So I'm not going to I'm using the webinar to attract from an audience that don't know me very well, people who have a need, who have a desire to achieve something. So I'm using this webinar as a magnet to bring people into the webinar who have a need, who want to achieve something, and I'm going to give some value with the aim that some of those people will see that value and want to speak to me. That's what we're going to do, or want to engage with us, or want to do whatever. So Maverrik, we do this every week. We give value, and a vast chunk of our audience go away and go, those Maverrik guys are great. Like, thumbs up, subscribe, tell other people, share posts on social media. They do all that stuff which helps our brand. But actually, a smaller proportion of the audience who come, and we have roughly somewhere around about 1,000 people a week, maybe a bit more than that, across our different offices, joining these sessions to get free value, go away, they'll sing our praises on social media, and a percentage come in and engage with us and have calls with us and ask us how we can help them. So that's what we're doing. We're using the webinar as a magnet to find the people with the need, establish our authority, and then turn that into an opportunity. Now, if you've been on our sessions, you'll see there's no hard sell with what we do. So we will give more value to people if they need it. If people get stuck, we'll go on calls and walk them through it, because we want people to see the value in being connected to us and part of some of the things we do. So we need to find their need, establish our authority, and find the opportunity. So that's what we're doing with the webinar. Now, the problem is, for us who are eager to sell and want everybody to buy our stuff, the problem is, all we want to talk about is our product. Yeah, we have a little bit of an obsession. And sometimes what happens, particularly with larger organizations, is they design the webinar around a product, or almost like as a product launch, like Apple, you know, here's the new iPhone kind of thing. But actually what we need to do is establish the people who have a need and show them the difference you can make working with you. So you don't tell them, you show them by giving them insight and value and all of those things. So all you have to do in this webinar, and a really profound statement, maybe one of the team can put it into the chat. In the chat, one of the, you can, if you put it in the chat, but one of the team can share this. There's a quote from a GM engineer, which I think it's Charles Kettering. And he says, if the people who understand the problems well enough have 50% of the solution. So sometimes when you're doing a webinar, people worry about giving too much information or giving too much value out that people don't need you. Actually, when you diagnose a problem that a customer has or an audience has succinctly enough, it opens their mind that they see they need to do something. They see they need to take action, but it only gives them half the answer. Now, if I was doing this webinar as a step-by-step, literally step 1, step 2, step 3, of course, that would be more valuable, but actually people wouldn't talk to us. People wouldn't engage with us. So I'm going to walk you through the strategy and the overall tactics today. I'll give you the tutorials, but we'll email them to you because they're too long for the session right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this webinar to establish the need, our authority, and create an opportunity. So if I just give you an example of how this works. So the first thing we have to do is find the people with the need. So this is where we think about our topic. Now, our topic has to help us get people to a call. Our topic has to help people get to a call. So we want people with a need on those calls. We don't want people just going, oh, you offered a call, so I thought I'd do it. I have no need, I thought you did a great presentation, but I have no real need, and I don't see why I need to talk to you. I just thought I'd do it anyway. We don't want that. Somebody's asked a question, is webinars interesting to attract attendees, sponsors in event industry? I'm not sure. Do you want to put that question in again and just expand on it? Because that would be brilliant, just so that we can understand a little bit more about what the question is there. So what you need to do is reverse engineer from the call, from what you're going to propose. So you work, if I'm going to propose our Accelerator program, which is a 12-month revenue, business growth, sales pipeline program, group program, there's a community in there of other people doing it, that are getting results, growing their audience, getting clients. If I'm going to propose the Accelerator, so my proposal out of this is the Accelerator. So that's what my proposal is. So we'll just go through this so you can see it. I have to pick and find people who need the Accelerator. So people who need the Accelerator typically are people who are struggling to make sales consistently. They maybe have been trying lots of different things and not been working. They haven't got that consistent pattern of building revenue, and they want to grow the business, but it just feels like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, or 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. So that's the promise of the Accelerator. We help people grow the business, scale their client base, and actually attract better paying clients. So if that's what we do, we need to reverse engineer all the way back to here. So what's the need here? And then our webinar topic is actually structured around this point here. This is what we want to eventually sell to them on the call. We're not going to use it to promote. We're not going to say, you know, and have like QVC strips on it and go, buy now, buy now. We've got 10 places left. We're just going to educate people so that they go, tell me more about this. I want to know more about this. I'm hungry for something like this. So what we do is we reverse engineer back to here to find the needs of our customers. What's the big needs that they have that we know we can help with? And then we structure our topic around the challenges that those needs cause. What's the challenges that those needs cause? So we know, for an example, in our business, lots of companies are struggling with sales pipeline. So we're doing a webinar today to talk about sales pipeline so that you can go away and go, you've given me a great idea. And some of you will go away and do it, and some of you will struggle to do it and come back to us and ask for more help. And that's cool. So the topic has to be centered around the need and the pain and the outcome. Now, pain and outcome are probably, need and pain are probably quite similar, but the outcome is the results people want to achieve. That's what you're trying to do. So what's the big pains and outcomes that people are wanting to achieve? So some of our Accelerator members are actually launching their own webinars right now. One of our students had theirs last week. They got 240 people on it, and it was all focused around their need, their pain, and their outcome. So you have to construct your topics around that, because if you don't construct your topics around it, you'll attract people with no need. And so when you try and move them into a call or a conversation, you've got nothing to anchor your conversation on. So if somebody comes to this webinar and we drop you a line afterwards and say, are you planning to use webinars for a sales pipeline? We've got something to anchor on. But if we do the changes in cybersecurity, it doesn't anchor anything. So a couple of people have asked a question here. If you're working with webinars and other long recordings, please don't do that, Jose. Please don't promote in other people's webinars. What we're trying to do is we're trying to establish a need. So for an example, it's a bit of an analysis time. This is where marketing and sales can work together. To research, I spend a lot of time researching on LinkedIn to see what my audience are thinking about, what's their challenges, what's their frustrations, so that I can construct training sessions, webinars, webcasts that will help them. Some people will go out away and shout about it. Some people will talk to us. So we establish our need by reverse engineering from the product or the service that we eventually want to sell to what's the need that they have. So that's the first thing we do. Innovative Wit, that's a great YouTube username. Innovative Wit. We do 3 webinars a week. 3 a week, different topics every single week. We do 2 in the UK and we do 1 in the US every single week. So tonight we have a US webinar tonight at it's 3 p.m. in the US on Eastern time, and it's 8 p.m. in the UK. So we do 3 a week. And the idea being is we create an educational resource. We give people light bulb moments, ideas that they can go away and run with, and it builds brand, which is great for the long-term future, but it also builds pipeline of people go, yeah, this is great. You guys have got some answers for us. So that's the idea. The end result of your webinar is not people clicking a button and buying because they've been sizzled in one webinar. That would be fantastic. But what happens is you've got to get people to make a sensible decision. And that's about a process. So if you get people to make a sensible decision through a webinar, so you educate and deliver authority and then follow up, you actually get a more reasonable customer. When I've seen people push with webinars or do product-centered webinars, they get people either with no intention or they get people with a lot of buyer's remorse when they click afterwards. So we do it in a very different way because it's more relaxed. If you're a small business or a big business, you don't have any pressure on you. Your only goal is to speak into their need, give them the light bulb moment. That's a rubbish light bulb moment. In other words, explain their challenge and their pain, understand it, help them understand it better, help them understand the root causes of why that happens. That's the need. Now, one of the byproducts of you helping people understand their challenge and their pain really well is that it elevates you as an authority. By presenting yourself like this, it elevates people and says, this person seems to know what they're talking about. So it gives you that elevation of authority. So that's another thing that helps you in the sales process. So often when you're doing a webinar, and this is really important caution for people, when you do a webinar, the tendency is that you go, oh, let's get a big name to come to the webinar, or let's get somebody else to come in and do it with us. And the idea is that you bring an audience together, you bring somebody else's audience and you get a share. The downside of that is that you actually split the attention. So I know somebody who's recently done a webinar. They got really good show up rates because they got a big name in their industry to come. They got a big name to come, so they got a big attendance. And the feedback after the webinar was, your speaker was awesome. Your speaker was awesome. The downside is that doesn't incentivize them to talk to you. So what you need to do is think about, actually, whoever's going to present this needs to be your company. Yeah. I know there's a tendency to bring somebody else in to build an audience because we can borrow their audience and all that stuff. And I understand the logic of all of that. But actually what happens, particularly if we're doing it in this phase where we're trying to generate business off the back of it, is that your main speaker is the star of the show. And so everything that they share, all the value that they give is attributed to them. So they get the following, they get the engagement, they get the connection requests afterwards saying, thank you so much, that was really insightful. They get all of that. And you get the thank you, Exco, for putting it on. But they don't see the need to talk to you. They see the need to talk to your guest speaker. So we need to establish the need, and we have to, whoever the presenter is, has to represent your company and teach and guide people through, if this is your challenge, this is one of the ways that you can solve it. So today's session for me is I'm coming here saying you can build a sales pipeline with webinars. We're going to get tactical in a minute, but I just want to get this point nailed. So then we create the authority. Yeah. So teaching and educating gives you a level of authority. Now, the next stage then is we've got to create the opportunity. Now, if you didn't see my webinar last week, I did presentation tips on webinars. So I did a whole session, an hour session on presentation and how to present on a webinar, including a structure of how to put the webinar together. So if you want a copy of that, do drop us an email, hi@maverrik.io. We'll send you a copy of the video and we'll send you a copy of the structure sheet. But one of the things we have to do is we have to seed the opportunity. And by seed, I mean drop little hints, not big clangers where you change the slides and say, we've got 4 places left. Come on down, the price is right. I'm talking about seeding the opportunity. Now, the thing about seeding is you water it, but you don't directly tinker with it. So you can plant the seed and you can do things to water it, but you don't then start peeling it back and forcing it to grow. As soon as you push people to do something, they immediately lose all authority and trust for you because suddenly they say everything that you've said is to sell. So you don't push a product because people will pull back. Yes, you'll convert some. If you went on and did a webinar and you got 200 people there and said push, 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 you would convert some because of urgency and all of that stuff. But the reality is you want to get people to see the idea for themselves. The opportunity is that you're helping other people see it for themselves, not tell them it. So how do you do that? So as you're doing your webinar and explaining the issues, you can help put in context those issues with people. So for an example, when you're teaching a point and explaining some of the challenges and why they happen and how they fix them through X, Y, or Z, or how they get to a goal, X, Y, or Z, your job is to then show them through examples and stories how you have helped people achieve that, how you've helped people fix this. Not as a really like look at before and after, but let me tell you about Rupinda, or let me tell you about James, or let me tell you about Heather from Accelerator program. So you tell people and give people examples so that they can go, tell me more about that. I want to know how they did that. Yeah, That's the opportunity. So most of the webinar is to diagnose, help people understand it, help people get clarity around it, and then actually seed the opportunity, because for them to want to talk to you afterwards, they have to see something valuable in talking to you afterwards. Not just because you've presented, here's my product, look how amazing it is, it's got these many reviews, blah, 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 blah. It can transform your business, blah, 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 blah. They have to see some value. So value is in the eye of the beholder. So what I mean by that is, what I think you think is valuable is completely different to what you think is actually valuable. So I could talk for all day about how you will need to promote your webinar, but if you go, I don't believe in webinars, we're wasting our time. So this is the key things we've got to do: need, authority, and opportunity. So coming back to my big promise for today's session, I'm going to show you how you can build a webinar, attract 200 registrations without paying a penny. Real simple. So I'm going to give you some paths to growing the webinar, but it's a real simple one. So the first thing to understand is, if you're going to build the webinar, so building the webinar, point one, is this topic has to be linked to the need, the pain, and the outcome. If it isn't linked to it, right, you won't attract people like a magnet. People won't need to see, oh, I have to come. Sometimes you might write too much about your webinar too. So I've seen people write loads of copy about their webinars, and then they go, why is nobody coming? The more you describe what you're going to talk about, the more likely you're going to say something to convince people not to come. So there's this Goldilocks amount of information that you have to give that gives people a confidence of there's something interesting here, but actually doesn't overstep the mark in giving people too much information. They go, oh, I already know that. The amount of people I have spoke to, small business owners, salespeople, marketers, where they go, customers don't understand they're in pain. And I go, no, you don't understand the customer's pain well enough to be able to talk to them, to get their attention. So sometimes there's a disconnect between what we think and what your prospects think. So there's a disconnect, and that disconnect will show up in the topic choice and the title. And to be honest with you, just like email marketing, the title of your webinar will pretty much determine the success or failure of the webinar. Because when you invite people, when you engage with people and ask them, do they want to come? Guess what? If the title doesn't do it for them, they'll go, no, I'm not even going to bother looking at it to consider it. So this title, the topic, and then the title become critical. If the title's right and the description, which can be short, is right, people will sign up, and people will opt in based on whether that title and that short description speaks to my need. In other words, do I need to know this? So some people join this because they really want to use webinars, and maybe they've failed before, maybe they've tried and it didn't work, or they got the wrong people. Some people will have joined this because they might be a competitor and curious about what we're talking about. And some people, a small percentage of people, will be like, maybe I should look at webinars. But there is fundamentally a need underlying that. And the title and the topic create that magnet. If you pick the wrong topic, you will attract the wrong people. So if I do a topic, how to become debt-free in 30 days, I wouldn't know anything about that, but let's assume I did. Who would I attract? Who would I attract? Graham, if you want a copy of the replay, just drop us an email and we'll send you it. So the title becomes absolutely critical. So the title is usually either the big promise, as we call it, what you're going to deliver, or it's the big struggle or the big challenge. It's one or the other. So pain, need, outcome attracts the people, and that determines the topic and the title. I spend a lot of time engaging with people on LinkedIn to find out what's their need, just so I can understand how to write a better webinar, how to write the best content that will help people. So that bit there becomes fundamental. You cannot attract the right people without a good title that speaks to a need or a big goal or a big promise that people want. So first of all, to build a webinar, point number one, and I am laboring the point on point number one, is if you don't nail this, webinar is going to be a disaster. Yep. So the strategy is we use need, pain, and outcome to create a topic and a title that links to what we're going to talk about and propose as the product or service to solve. If you don't link it to a product, you don't link the webinar to a product, but if you don't link the topic to a product or service, you're going to hide into nothing. You'll get a lot of people showing up for something interesting and see no need to talk to you, no need to engage with you. So this comes back to a fundamental thing I preach from the rooftops and work with our Accelerator members on, is you've got to nail your value proposition, not in the eyes of your own team, not in your business owner eyes, but you have to nail it in the way your customers would see it, which is a totally different concept. We come at it from different perspectives. So you have to step out of your world and step into theirs. And I'll give you an example. One word change in that title can be the difference. One word. You put one word in there and it changes the attendees, it changes the interest level, the works. So spending some time on that makes a difference. So the strategy piece. Now, the next bit I want to go on to, I'm going to wipe this off. But again, if you want my notes on this, please email us and we'll send it. And so I'm going to wipe this clean and we're going to go now to the practical stuff. So this is where we start to get the rubber hitting the road. And so it's important that you get all of this, because if you know that first bit obviously determines success in the long run. Now we're coming to the rubber hits the road. So for you to get the first one going, you need 6 weeks. To do it properly, 6 weeks. That's 6 weeks of promotion, 6 weeks to run it up. Don't try and do it at short notice, and don't go, oh, I've got 6 weeks and I'm going to spend 4 weeks ringing up the title and the topic. Burning the time. You want 6 weeks. Now, there's 2 great platforms that you can use. And most people would think, really? So Eventbrite, number 1, is a fantastic event registration platform. It's also got a bulk of users. So when you use Eventbrite, you can literally create an event. You can put your broadcast links in there. You can put your stuff in there. You can put all the information in there. But the beauty of it is you can appeal to a wider network. So Eventbrite has users, and if you in the Eventbrite, and we've got a tutorial on how to do this, which you can have, so just email us. In there, you can tag the event by its topic, so it will attract people from different audiences. So Eventbrite, if I could spell, Eventbrite is a good one. Why? Because if you haven't got a marketing list, you can actually draw on the audience there. Number 1. Number 2 is LinkedIn events. By far, LinkedIn events is one of the best event platforms there is, because you can build an event and register your connections. You can invite your connections to join, and they can accept, and it will load into their diary, and it will remind them, and you can see the attendee list. You can download the attendee list. It's brilliant. So you need to set up the LinkedIn event. And again, there's a tutorial we've got on how to set up a LinkedIn event. You can just email us for it. Now, why do we use these 2 platforms? Why do we use them? Well, if I'm running on LinkedIn and I've got 6 weeks run up, and I've got, say, 5,000 connections, over 6 weeks, I can actually invite 5,000 people. 5,000 people. So I can click on my LinkedIn event and invite my connections. Now, obviously, I need to grow my network with my target clients. So you have to build your network. Again, that's another webinar, another session, but you can build your network quickly with LinkedIn. You can engage an audience quickly with LinkedIn. You can post about it with LinkedIn. But ultimately what we're doing is we're using the title and the topic as a magnet, and then we're going to post about it on LinkedIn and build an event. So when I post on LinkedIn about our events, I will push people on my posts to Eventbrite. I will not be pushing people to my event on LinkedIn because the algorithm doesn't seem to like it when you post about LinkedIn events and link a LinkedIn event, but it doesn't mind it so much when you post to Eventbrite. So I will post about the Eventbrite one, and I will invite people on LinkedIn events. And then if there's a target audience, and I want to really make them help them come, I might DM outreach people, just a small number, not thousands, of my contacts and go, hey, we're doing this event, and I might link them in my DMs to the LinkedIn event, because then they get a little preview in the DM of the event and the title and everything, and it's brilliant. So they can just click yes in the DM. So if you DM a LinkedIn event to them, obviously with a bit of a message to say, I think this might be useful for you. Do you want to come along? They can literally click the button and say, yes, I'm coming, in the DM. Whereas if you send them the Eventbrite, they have to click through, they put all the details in. LinkedIn captures all the details for you, does it all for you in one click. So DM posts is a really good one. Now, the other thing that you can do is groups. So LinkedIn groups, they're not very good, to be honest with you. They're a little bit of a ghost town, tumbleweeds often. But what you can do is see who's in your groups that you're part of on LinkedIn, who it might be relevant to. So you could post in the groups, first of all, not as effective. So you could post in the groups, not great. It's not the best way of doing it. Or you could reach out and DM a few people from the group. Not many, don't go nuts with it. But maybe there's a sales manager or a marketing manager that you know that might be useful for, and you can find in the group and DM them, even though you're not connected. So if you're in a group with people, you can actually message them who are not there, who are not part of your network. So you could drop them a line and say, hi, Tony, we're part of the marketing directors group. Just wanted to let you know, we're hosting this webinar. It's highly relevant for marketing managers. Would you like to come along? I put a link to the LinkedIn event here below. Real key. So given that LinkedIn events will allow you to invite 1,000 people per week, 1,000 people per week. And if you have a 6-week run up, you can build comfortably 200 people coming to your webinar. Now, you have to proactively remind people that it's coming up. You can't just rest on your laurels and hope people just show up. You have to remind people. So if you build your LinkedIn event in the right way, and again, we've got a tutorial on this, you actually can data capture. So you can data capture the event, and so then they can see you and engage with you, and you can remind them, don't forget to join us, here's the time, exactly like we do. So Eventbrite is good for posts, it's good for reach off LinkedIn. You can share it on other social channels. It's a good way to get it out there across the platform, and it's great for getting it indexed in Google and all the other places. So this is a great way to publish. I mean, you could do lots more, but to be honest with you, you can get 200 attendees just from doing that. Now, here's the good thing. We've got a question here. So DMax is asking, DMax, I've not seen you on LinkedIn on our events for a little while. So DMax, one of the things DMax is saying, if you're using Zoom for your webinar, how do you get around people having to sign up via Eventbrite and via Zoom? So real simple, DMax, if they sign up via LinkedIn or they sign up via Eventbrite, you don't have to have a double registration on Zoom. You could leave it open, because inside Eventbrite and inside LinkedIn, you can put the call link. So we're doing ours as LinkedIn Live today on LinkedIn, so we can do it on LinkedIn Live, but we also do it on YouTube and various different places because people have joined via Eventbrite. So we'll put the call link into Eventbrite, and we'll put the call link into LinkedIn's event. Only those people who register get the link. And so you don't need a second registration form, because you've got the registration details here, and you got the registration details here. So why do you don't need any more data? So real simple, you just put the link in there and the link in there, no more information needed. So very, very simple process. Sometimes what happens is companies try to get people to register twice. And so what they do is they put a registration form on Zoom and they put a registration form on the sign up page. What we're trying to do is reduce the barriers to coming to the webinar, reduce them. We're trying to get them connected to us to build our authority, establish their need. So we want to reduce the barriers. If we've got the data here and here, we don't need to like make it harder. And I saw somebody do a LinkedIn event, and they did this whole double registration thing. And what they sent, the people registered, so they registered here and here, and Eventbrite and LinkedIn said, "You're registered." And they passed the data on to the host of the webinars. And then the webinar host decided to send a message to the people saying, "Your registration's not complete. You need to then sign up to another form." And I was like, why? Why are you doing that? But they kept doing it. "Your registration's not complete. Your registration's not complete." And I'm like, I don't understand. And the reason they wanted people to register twice was because they didn't want to import the data directly into the CRM. They wanted the user to put the information directly into the CRM. So what happened was, instead of getting 1,000 people who've registered to come, they then spent the next couple of weeks telling people, "You haven't registered, you haven't registered, you haven't registered, you haven't registered, and you need to click." Don't make people jump through too many hoops. We call them intent thresholds. And the first intent threshold is getting them to click and register here. Don't get them to do any more. They don't know the value yet. So it's like, oh, another form, well, I'm not doing it. So the idea is we can get people to connect. Now, if you do your reminders, don't forget to join us. There's a big win for coming to this webinar. You're going to learn this or you're going to learn that. That sign-up rate, or the sign-up rate will be great from the title and the topic, but the show-up rate will be higher. So what a lot of people find is when they do a webinar, if they get the title and the topic wrong, they get low registrations and they get low show-ups. So what happens is they end up doing a webinar with 100 people and they end up with 7. So that can be a bit frustrating, a bit disappointing, and people can say, I'm not doing it again. So the reminder process is really important in terms of making sure people don't forget and they can come. So there's 3 reminders you need to do before the webinar, one of which comes 5 or 10 minutes before, just to give people a nudge. But we don't create too many what we call intent thresholds before the webinar. We want people to get in, we want them to see it, experience it, understand it, and you can do lots of call to actions off the back of it. But the best thing to do is that the people come, they experience it, they learn something, they go away inspired, interested, excited, what have you. So if you do the webinar process right and your topics right, you can have anywhere from 25% to about 60% I've seen as the best one show up rate. So when you're calculating how many people you want to be there, so if you want to get 200 people there, actually you need to think about what's the drop-off rate. DMAX, the Zoom has that already built in. Yeah, but why would you ask people to do it? Drop the registration. DMAX, yes, you can do the reminders in LinkedIn. LinkedIn automatically does the reminders, and so does Eventbrite. But Zoom, you're pushing people to a registration form that's unfamiliar. Eventbrite is a credible platform, and LinkedIn is an easy platform. So yes, you could do it to Zoom, but it's a little bit more like, what's this? Whereas Eventbrite is a more trusted platform, and you gain traffic from outside of your network, outside of your bubble. So if you're doing it for 6 weeks, if you're on LinkedIn, promotion, you should post once a week. A post per week to do it. And every week you can invite 1,000 people. In your post, you push to Eventbrite, because obviously if Eventbrite starts to get registrations, it's going to show your event to more people on their network. And so you get people from out of your bubble to your webinar. So if we want 200 people to come, we need registration somewhere around, at the worst end, we need about 800, and at the minimal end, we need about, at the best end, sorry, you need about 400, say. Yep. Now, with LinkedIn, that's really easy, as long as you're building your network on LinkedIn with the right people and the right audience. Now, the key thing is, if you're going to do this, you need the step-by-step. So I'm going to show you quickly in this step-by-step. And again, if you want my notes on this, I can send them to you. Just email them. I'll probably send them to you tomorrow. So apologies if you get them tomorrow. But if you email the office, they'll make sure we get that to you. So if we think about this as a timeline, and here's day 1. So this is the webinar day. And this here is the call day. Yeah. So what have we got to do all the way here? So on day T minus 6 weeks, we've got to get the event on LinkedIn up on Eventbrite and LinkedIn events. We've got to get that up. So that's the first thing, 6 weeks out. We've then got six posts. Yeah, 6 posts we have to do, which are all pushing to Eventbrite. We've then got to do invites. And every week, LinkedIn will let us invite people every week. There's a cap every week, but you can invite 6 people. So each week you can invite people. Whilst you're doing that, you'll want to reach out to some people. So you might go to the groups and you might do the DM thing that we talked about earlier, messaging people with the LinkedIn events link. Do not wait till the last week to do that. You want to be doing that at various stages. Don't just go with the last minute, panic. Let's try and get as more people as possible. You want to do it early and engage with those prospects. Don't just send them a DM. They've never heard from you before, or your connections have never seen you in 6 months. You want to get active on the platform. You want to be engaging with them, and then say, I'm really enjoying being connected with you on LinkedIn, and actually send that message. Yeah. That will get you your 200 signups. It might seem like an onslaught. It might seem like a lot of work. But if you can get 200 prospects signed up for your webinar, and you deliver that value on day 1, and you show them how you can solve their problem, you show them how you can make a difference. Once the webinar's done, you can personally thank them for coming, and you can offer them a chance to speak, to know more, or to share a bit more, or to how they can apply what we've talked about to their particular business. And out of that, you can book your calls. Now, not everybody's going to want to buy from you. That's cool. But number one thing in sales and building a pipeline is, if you don't speak to anybody, if you don't establish anything, you can't create any opportunities. So when you're talking about this from a big company, with a big company, the bit that gets tricky is when a big company is doing it, marketing is driving all of this. Yeah. And what happens is, after the webinar, they just get put into an email list. Yeah. And just go into an email list. So the problem is that doesn't put them in touch with somebody. And literally the week after the webinar, that person is very focused on what you've shared. If you've shared value around a topic and a pain and an outcome and a frustration that they're experiencing. So they're very in tune in that 7-day period after the webinar, 7-day period. So what we encourage bigger businesses to do, and this works for a small business too, is don't just put them straight into an email list. Actually follow up with some of the people who are interested early. Follow up with them, because they're the ones who are going to be most open to talking. Follow up and engage with them to see if they want to talk about it a little bit more. Off every webinar we do, we'll generate 40, 50 further conversations with people out of 1,100 people. But some of those people come back and come back and come back. And some of our accelerator people have said, I've been on like 10 of your webinars and they were all brilliant, or they were all great. Or I shouldn't say that, it's me saying it, but they enjoyed them. They enjoyed the webinars and said, I can see how you and Maverrik can help us achieve all of these issues and solve all these issues and build a stable revenue in the business. So the webinars themselves have a long-term benefit to your business. It's not just about the one-hit wonder. But yes, you will get some good opportunities straight out of the bat, off the back of the webinars. But what bigger businesses do is they put them into the email list, hoping that the email list will help them come to the boil, for want of a word. What we encourage companies to do is connect, brief, engage the sales team early in this process so they can be part of bringing their prospects to the webinar. They can bring their contacts to the webinar. They're involved in the topic together. And then when the follow-up happens, they can engage with the follow-up, not with a pitch, not with any pushiness, but just saying, would it be worth a chat with one of our product team? Or would you like to look at this? We can show you how this works. What did you think? And engage people to create a call. So you can say, so what was the issues that we discussed in the webinar that was resonated with you? What are the things that you're dealing with? How does that apply to your business? And you can open up a conversation. But this last link here has to be, don't just put it into an email list, get into conversation. And it's the 7-day window that you have to be able to do it. Does anybody have any questions here? Obviously, I've gone through a lot quickly, but the key thing is, just to sum up, if you want a compelling webinar, it has to be about a pain, a challenge, a goal, or a frustration, and the title has to be tested using research so that you get the right title. It can take a couple of weeks to figure out the title. Once you've done that, you can build out your topics. And again, we had a session on that last week, so you can go ask us for the session and we'll send you the video for that session. Once you've built that topic, you have a promotion plan. You promote. Invite people, engage with people, go to LinkedIn groups, engage with people and bring people to that webinar. Eventbrite and LinkedIn will deal with the data capture for you. All you have to do is present something that helps people understand their need better, their challenge better. And as you help people understand it, they see the clarity of the results that can happen better. But you connect the whole topic, the whole process is from start to finish this is what we want to educate people about. This is the end result we'd love to have. Let's work back from that. What's the value we need to deliver to build our authority, to build our case, to attract the right people, and then build the right topic. It's the whole process, but it starts with that strategy at the beginning. Let's build a webinar that attracts people who have a need. Any questions, please put them in the chat. So it's Deska Chan has said, I'm stuck on that timeline, William, 6 weeks before the date, but if you have a webinar each week, each one is advertised 6 weeks before. So it's what you're saying there, Deshan, I understand what you're saying, but we're working 6 weeks ahead. So we're working out. We've got a big team. So when I started this business in 2014, it was just me on my own. And as I got the business a bit busier, we hired some more people, but we built the whole business organically. So we now have a team of just under 50 people. And so we have different webinars, different sessions for different offices in our business. So started with Dean all by himself, then a few more, and then we built out to where we are today. So I'm doing it on a 6-week cycle because I can do a 6-week cycle. But you might do it as twice a quarter to begin with. In our accelerator, we encourage people to start with twice a quarter. But actually, once you've built up the routine, you can actually work yourself out so you've got enough time to promote. So obviously the other advantage of this is you actually build an email list. So all of the people who don't end up on the call, you can continue to nurture through your email list, but you can also bring them back to other webinars. So they get multiple exposures to you, your content, and you elevate your authority and expertise so that they see you. Like branding, basically. Branding 101, you're landing your message with a group of people. So that's really key, is that you make sure the strategy piece is right, because the two big wins, and the big win from a webinar is, yes, you get the calls at the end, which is brilliant. And that's what you really want, because then they can be proposals, they can be follow-ups, and you've built your pipeline pretty quick. But what most people don't realize, is that of those people who didn't show up, you send a replay. Of those people who didn't want to call, you're building them as part of your compound impact down the road. That some of these people might need to come to 4 webinars, 2 webinars. They may need to see your content for a bit longer. And then they come in, and a lot of the barriers to the sale have been broken down because they've had multiple exposures to you. Deshan, what I would do, I'm doing this with a client at the moment. They're on our accelerator program. We've got 2 planned in the next 13 weeks. 2 planned in the next 13 weeks. One is now up and running and filling up. And then in a couple of weeks, we'll put the next one up. Now, we've been doing this in and out, day in, day out for a long time. So we know the process and we can manage the process. But if you're doing this on your own for the first time, get one up, have one idea of the second one, but focus on getting one up and achieved. And as soon as that's done, next one goes up. So have everything ready and do it again. So Deshan, in your scenario, I would do one, then another one to begin with until you get that well-oiled operation, and then you can go and do it more frequently. Okay, I think we've mastered all the questions. So just before we wrap up, the one thing I want to share, I've gone through a lot of stuff in 60 minutes here. So we're more than happy to give you a replay, my notes off the presentation here, whiteboard here. And importantly, if you want some help, you can chat to our team. But if you've got value from this session, the only thing we ask is you go follow our pages, come find me on LinkedIn, tell other people about it. That would be brilliant for us, the brand piece, remember. So we're practicing what we preach. We're doing exactly the same thing. So if you want to talk to us, you can. If you don't, just sing our praises somewhere. That would be awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you on the next session. We've got one tonight on our US page, and we're back next week, same time, for another topic that will help you grow your business on social media.
Past year, Maverrik has helped generate more than 15 million in new business. The biggest reason for this is our 90-day training and implementation platform we call the Accelerator program, where we teach your team to sell on social media with an implement-as-you-go strategy. It's not a pre-recorded course, it's hands-on sales training that develops and grows with you, with 90 days of real action that generates business and long-term revenue. So who is it for? This program is for entrepreneurs, marketing and sales professionals who want to sell without ads, cold calling, or pushy tactics. A better way of selling with real steps to take which speeds up your sales process without burning any bridges. These are just a few examples of results our members have achieved using the Accelerator. As you can see, the Accelerator isn't about quick wins, it's about building a better sales process. If you'd like to learn more, just book a call with the Maverrik team and we'll show you how the Accelerator program can win you new business.